have a very special guest, David Meltzer, who I consider a dear friend. And we're excited to talk with him. I have Carlos Ponces, who's joining me from Mexico City. I am here in Los Angeles at home. And David is joining us, I think, from Ladera or Irvine. I'm not sure, somewhere in Orange County. If you could square us out, Arturo, that'd be great so everyone can see us here. Thanks for joining me today, David. For those who don't know you, I would love for you to quickly just introduce yourself and let the audience know who you are. And then we'll talk about your business a little bit.
Absolutely. I am the co-founder of Sports One Marketing. My business partner is Hall of Fame quarterback Warren Moon. Previous to that, I started my career in technology. I was the CEO of the world's first smartphone, a Samsung manufactured phone, a CE device, and then moved to be the CEO of Lee Steinberg Sports Entertainment, the most notable sports agency in the world, where I met Warren Moon. Over the past 3 years, I've built my own brand beyond the celebrities, athletes, entertainers, and charities that we work with to specifically teach. As an executive coach, I speak, I write books. I have a podcast called The Playbook. I have a TV show called Elevator Pitch. All of these things are directed towards one thing. That's my personal mission: to empower 1,000 people, to empower 1,000 people, to empower 1,000 people to be happy. I'm on a mission to empower others to have strength, health, and happiness. Happiness is the greatest virus ever. It spreads so easily. It even spreads by people witnessing it. And most importantly, it counteracts every other virus because it strengthens our immune system. So that's why I'm here, and it's a pleasure to be on, and I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity.
Thanks, David. It's great to have you join us. We definitely need some positive reinforcement right now with everything that's going on. But before we go into the topic of today, I do want to clarify something. I read somewhere some reference to Jerry Maguire. What's the connection to that movie and you?
It's a very loose connection, but I was the CEO of Lee Steinberg Sports Entertainment. Lee is the inspiration for the movie Jerry Maguire. Cameron Crowe followed him around. They put Lee in the movie, and Warren and Troy Aikman. But I was the CEO of the company that they based the movie off of.
Awesome. Pretty cool. There's a little connection to a nice, famous movie. Carlos, please introduce the topic today, and let's go right into it. I want to hear what David has to say today.
Absolutely, Tulio. Thank you so much, and thank you, your guest, for being with us today. David, we're going to be speaking about the road to happiness and revenue, right? That's the topic that you kindly suggested for today's conversation. So first question is, tell us why you chose this particular topic. Why do you think it's relevant nowadays in this, amidst the turmoil that we're kind of experiencing?
Sure. Well, we're experiencing a compressed time, a compressed change, and a compressed uncertainty. And uncertainty of our future always causes anxiety, fear, which slows things down. And I think it's really important to remember, my mentor, Bob Proctor, always had taught me that more millionaires were made in the Great Depression than any other time. And so there's two things that we need to focus in on. Number one is culture, and number two is cash. And both need to be stabilized, and then opportunities will erupt and arise and become aware of from there. But we need to stabilize things just like a Southwest steward or stewardess or flight attendant. They always say, put your mask on first and then put it on your child to make sure that they're okay. And if you have more than one child, by the way, they always say, put it on the child with the most potential and work your way down. The same thing holds true in the road to revenue with culture. The best thing that we can do today is realize that we're in the middle of a miracle, that there's incredible opportunity if we know our values. And the nice thing is we all have more time today to take inventory. And the first thing we should be taking inventory is on our values, our personal, experiential, giving and receiving values every day, since time is compressed and change is exaggerated and uncertainty is closer upon us than ever before. We need to take that type of inventory and reinforce our values, our culture of our businesses, and communicate those daily as we are working remotely. And even to those that may not have the opportunity to be employed, we still need to communicate, because this too shall pass, and tremendous opportunity will repurpose, re-engineer, and resurface. And we need to be ready for it and keep a positive mindset.
Thank you so much, David. Hey, well, you certainly gave us a lot of tweeting material right now. So thank you so much. Tulio, please.
Yeah, so David, I mean, I think you're one of the top coaches in the world. I think one of the Marshall Goodman coaches as well. So what are some of the things that you're seeing from some of your executive coach clients in the past couple of weeks? I mean, we're seeing companies go from panic to overreacting to not having foresight about turning this into an opportunity. We're seeing some companies double down. What are some of the key things that you're noticing, and perhaps some tips for those who are just confused of like, what do I do? Please shed some light on some of those experiences right now.
So, through the leaders and executives that I coach, we really look to capabilities. We look within before we look out. Obviously, there's a lot of instability, uncertainty, unstable data out there, and it changes daily. So what we want to do is focus in on the superpowers that we have and the superpowers that other people have, and using simple methodology of understanding how those capabilities are synergistic or supplementary to the successful companies during this period of time, the maintained or sustainable companies during this time, and then also understanding the capabilities that are synergistic or supplementary to the beat up companies at this time, because a lot of times the biggest opportunities for the future lie in things or opportunities that have been oversold. And that was the emotional aspect in which you were discussing previously. So if you focus in on the three different areas of where and how can I be successful during this time, where and how can I sustain my model during this time, and then what opportunities should I be re-engineering, repurposing during this time with innovation, creation, mindset practice, all the different things that we now have the opportunity. I've learned more about technology. Being a technology person, a sports and entertainment and media person, I probably have more video posted than almost everyone except for maybe Gary Vee in the last 3 years. I have learned more about my own video, my own brand, the quality content in which I can produce, and the efficiency that I produce it in the last 11 days than ever before in the past 3 years since I started building my brand. So there's extreme opportunity to collaborate, create, and innovate.
So I'm very curious. What were some of the things you've learned in the past 11 days? Love to hear what you've come across.
Well, I always learn about my own ego, and the things that I've learned about my ego is we would only do, I have one of the top entrepreneurial podcasts with Entrepreneur Magazine called The Playbook, and we would only take guests in person. And I will tell you that it is a great expense to travel with, 3 people and myself around the world to sit down and get interviews in person. I had always been resistant to video conferencing, Zoom, lives, all these different things, and obviously forced working out of my closet to figure out this technology and figure out the efficiencies, the effectiveness, and the statistical success. So I've been able to create more content, better content with better people because I've dropped my ego that it had to be in person. And only reason I thought it had to be in person is because, once again, you could take advice from people. And I'm starting to realize that some of the advice that I took, because I believe in mentorship, that you need to ask people that have situational knowledge, experience in what they're doing. And I took the advice, just like taking advice from your mom. Just because someone loves you doesn't mean they give you good advice. I have now learned another valuable lesson to make sure that I seek the appropriate counsel determinative upon what I'm looking at. In all fairness, a lot of it too was nobody knew the answers. And there's a lot of guessing that still goes on in the content media game.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. That's definitely something I've seen. I know you're friends with Gary Vee, for example. He recently posted a video where he was like, somebody asked him a question about remote work or work from home, and he was like adamantly against it. I think it was from 2014. He goes, I just don't believe it. It doesn't work. I want to be there with people and collaborate. And then recently was like, you know what, this is actually not bad. I can get a lot of things done. And I can be very productive because the technology has created a vehicle for us to do that. I mean, in our case, in our business, we do a lot of the work we do remote. We've worked with clients remotely for over 13 years, so it's nothing new to us. But for some organization, it's a real challenge. And going back to your comment about culture, some companies are going to have an easier time transitioning to this, or having an easier time transitioning to this, because their culture is more open, more of a shared authority type culture where there's collaboration amongst teams, versus some of those organizations that are more command and control, where there's the boss and employee kind of relationship, where you don't have the oversight you used to have. You can't just go look over somebody's shoulder in the cubicle or what have you. What tips do you have for those organizations that are struggling with this whole culture that's not serving them right now in this new world? How can they make the transition in a way that's painless, or at least as painless as possible?
You know, I think sticking to the values that you built the company on, keeping things as normal culturally as you can. So it's interesting for me because I've always created a collaborative environment where we're always built on the core values. Everybody is built to expand and to learn lessons and to make mistakes. In fact, I give a dummy award called the Dummy Tax Award, not Dummy Award, Dummy Tax Award. So everybody goes around and shares the biggest mistake that they made and what value or what lesson that they've learned. And then the person that had made the biggest lesson gets a bonus. So I encourage people to expand and accelerate and make mistakes. Our company is built on gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration. The interesting thing in our culture is that because of the remote nature that I'm doing, I actually have more command and control because I have the time, instead of all the travel and being immersed into the business itself, I have time to actually acquire the knowledge of what performance KPIs are a result of each individual employee. And I'm seeing the effects of who actually has the most productivity, who is the most accessible, and also that lens of gratitude is also coming out. So those people that are shifted or create and see conflict in their culture, go and understand the culture, reiterate the culture, meaning the values of the company, and allow people to work and figure things out and guide them with good advice, but encourage the mistakes, because as you work through these lessons, you will benefit greatly when we get to the other side.
Yeah, what great advice. I mean, look, the days of like showing up to a meeting with your buttoned up suit, that's just not appropriate right now, right? You might actually have your dog walking by, your toddler coming in. There was a show on Sunday. These artists were giving a show, and you had their children while they're playing a guitar or singing. It was actually very real, in essence, very raw and very authentic. And I found that really refreshing. What do you think of this dilemma that we're in, this crisis we're in? Do you think that could be an opportunity for us to become a little bit more authentic, not try to put up images, look like something that we're not, and just be okay with not being 100% all the time, and things being a little messy, and your child walking in the middle of a meeting and trying to coordinate those things? How do you think we can shift our mindset, instead of looking at that, oh my gosh, I can't get anything done, I have all these things going on, and shift our mindset from a place of like, you know what, I can make this a happy opportunity for me? What are your tips on turning that into a happiness opportunity?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of areas that we can look at where we may have been resistance because of ego, history, culture, not to be as accepting of, right? To take business meetings with our kids, with our dogs, in our closets, a variety of things have changed. And I think we're on the path to this change. So one thing to realize is this was inevitable. And whether it was the disease, look, by 2027 in America, over 50% of the employees in America were going to be freelancers. The technology is not slowing down. So the capabilities of these types of technologies that allow us to unify in a better and greater manner, to communicate and to inspire each other, collaborate with each other, get closer to one another, to clear the interference or corrosion between the connection of not only all of us combined. I think we're learning more than ever that a tree has no branches, that one tree should not go to war against another. We, at a world level, a humanitarian level, are all in this together. And you can see through our shared experience that there is a great unification in the microcosmic world of our own individual home offices and families, all the way out to the entire countries that are being affected at the same time in the same way. And so I think for sure that we are on that path of acceptance, of authenticity, of showing and illuminating who we are, our true frequency, our organic, credible self. And I believe we're on our way there. But this uncertain time has accelerated the opportunity to allow us to be who we are, to love who we are, and share that with others, and have more acceptance, less judgments, less conditions, less interference, voids, shortages, and obstacles. And I do think when we come out of this, things will be more efficient, effective, and statistically successful with this open attitude.
Well, yeah, what a beautiful way to look at it. I mean, this is the greatest equalizer ever, right? There's no one it doesn't discriminate against anyone. There's no one who's shielded from it. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from, how rich or poor, or what color you are, what creed you have, what sexual orientation. It doesn't matter. It affects every single one of us. I want to go back to something you said earlier about your mission to make or create a happier world. And if I did the math correctly, you're basically going to go after about 1 billion people. Is that right? So what does that look like, Dave? What does that look like?
Well, I believe in
that's a big mission.
Yeah. And you know what? When my original mission when I was money driven was to make over $1 billion. And I could never connect the dots backwards with the capabilities that I had within the context of me as a professional and the businesses that I own, participate in, and have invested in. I never could connect the dots backwards to make over $1 billion. I've made hundreds of millions of dollars, but I couldn't connect the dots backwards. So through my own transformation, a quantum shift in my life to provide more value and to be of service to others, I got this great inspiration, this great enlightenment that I actually believe, and not only do I believe, other people believe this of me, that I have the capability in my lifetime. I'm going to live to over 111. I know that. So I have the capability in my lifetime to empower 1,000 people, to empower 1,000 people that will empower 1,000 people. And when I step on the stages and do the interviews and create content, my favorite, most inspirational thing is when I ask people, is anyone out there want to be one of my 1,000? Is anyone out there think that with some guidance and inspiration from me that you yourself can empower 1,000 to empower 1,000? And this way we can create a collective consciousness of strength, health, and happiness, all which will create an incredible amount of abundance of more than enough of everything for everyone. And it'll be such a great world to live in with that collective consciousness. But the greatest thing is most people believe me. Most people, after listening and reading and seeing and watching all the different things that I do, believe that I have the capability of impacting 1,000 people in my life to do and impact 1,000 to impact 1,000. So I'm actually more confident of this grand, great vision of mine than almost anything I've ever set out to do, way more than me being a professional football player.
I've heard your stories of when you were trying to be a professional football player, right in your office as you were giving a little class for your employees. I love that. You had a pretty hard coach on you too. Dave, that's an amazing mission. And I love one of the things I learned from you in talking with you, this idea of like, you know what, you can have customers, you can have followers, but what you really want is what you call ambassadors. Tell us a little bit more about that. How does that play into this plan that you have?
It's like the viral nature of happiness, right? Like what I saw, as you know, Gary Vaynerchuk has had a significant role in my life as far as my media career. I was blessed to help him with the sports agency a little bit, and he's helped me, guide me. And one of the philosophies that I have about all successes is that there's no such thing as an overnight success. And what happens to people when they try to be successful, whatever it is, especially entrepreneurship or business, is when most people get to 25% of the way there, 25% of the way from their dream, their objective, or their goal, 99% of those people quit. And then it's only half as much time to get to 50% of there. But once again, 99% of those 1% quit after they get to 50% there. And that's because they start voting for what other people want for them. They start manifesting and creating and believing in other people what they want instead of what they believe. The saddest thing is at that time, you're only half as much time from being 100% of the way there, and half as much time from 200, half as much time to 400. Well, the same thing for me of impacting people is that if I took the goal, I started this when I was 50 years old at the Super Bowl, started to do content and give speeches and other things. But my goal was if I could impact 2 people in a year that would go ahead and be ambassadors of the content, the quality content that I provided. And every year would get 2 more people to believe in what I was doing, to get 2 more people that, after 5 years, it would not be very impressive, but I would have 64 ambassadors, 64 people getting 64 people a year. But after 10 years, still not that impressive. I would have 2,000 people getting me 2,000 people. But after 15 years, I would have 64,000 people getting me 64,000. And in 20 years, when I turned 70, far before my 111th birthday, I would have 2 million people impacting 2 million people a year. That's significant. And so when I looked at the virality, the exponential growth and acceleration of inspiration, of quality content, of authenticity, of the strength of my signal growing, the spectrum of my signal growing, and the clarity of my message growing, that just the prospect at 2 by 2 by 2, being able to get to 2 million people, impacting 2 million people every single year, wow. And I think so many people, they work hard, they work smart, but they don't work long.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, that's definitely a lesson I learned from you, which is you got to be committed to the long haul. I actually started a blog last year, and I committed to doing it every week. And 6 months in, I was like, I'm running out of things to talk about. I don't know if this thing's getting any traction. And about a year later, it got picked up by a few places, like Innovation Brief, where it reaches 100,000 people. And now recently, there's another publication that reaches 2.5 million people that's going to start picking it up. So it's like you've got to keep going, and you've got to be committed to a long term. I love that. So, Dave, I want to shift gear a little bit about your charity work, because you've been a very successful entrepreneur, but you also give back a lot. And I really believe that's not only a formula for just being a good human being, it's also a good formula to being successful in business. There's been studies done that those who are most charitable end up being most successful as well. Can you share a little bit of some of the things you're involved with? How did that come to be? How did you become charitable that way? Why was that something that was important to you, and why is it important to you right now, today?
Starting with the fact that I started to realize there was 3 worlds, regardless of what you had. There's a world of not enough, and that's a very scarce world where everything happens to you. It's a world that a lot of people, because of the uncertainty and change that's occurring today, are trapped in. They are looking not for the superpowers of everything and everyone, but looking into the scarcity, the voids, the shortages, the obstacles, and they live in a world of not enough, and everything is happening to them. They are victims. It's the why me attitude, not the try me attitude. And that's the first world that a lot of people live in, especially with the stresses of today. The second world was the world that I had lived most of my life in. It was the world of just enough for me. And there never seemed to be enough. There was always more for me. And I thought I was an optimist and a philanthropist. I would give money, but expect things back. I was very generous with my money, but always had some sort of expectation. And when I realized that I wasn't truly giving, that I was just trading, I started to explore the idea of providing value unconditionally. And understanding the laws of the universe and the aspect of unconditional giving and unconditional love. And one thing about the world that I wanted to live in, it was going to be a world of more than enough, an abundant world where there's more than enough of everything for everyone, and that everything that I was going to receive was going to come through me, not to me like a victim, not for me as a trader, as a manipulator, but through me for others. And it motivated me, inspired me to get as much as I could, to realize that I cannot give what I don't have. And that is everything from learning to love me, to money, to health, all the things that I now focus my attention in and give my intention to create the coincidences in my life that I want. And I have changed my entire life to work within the world of more than enough. I am the Chief Chancellor of Junior Achievement University with Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield and Brian Tracy and Sharon Lecter. I am the chairman of the Unstoppable Foundation, building community centers and villages in Africa to empower people to have sustainable lives so that they themselves can go and fish themselves, not be given, right? Remember, if you're a person who wants to be given things, all you've learned is how to receive, and you always will need people to give them. If you learn how to and what to, your why will become obvious, and you'll be able to do the best thing that you can do. My, last piece of advice, though, for people that are trapped, stuck, depressed, anxious, fearful, stuck in an ego-based emotion of separateness, inferiority, superiority, resentment, offense, all the different feelings of the ego. If you've lost your job, if you've closed your business, if you are financially in dire straits, there's very few people on earth that have lost as much money as me. I've lost everything. They've toted me out of my house. I've lived in, with nothing and to riches to nothing again. One thing I've learned is when you don't have a way, right? When you can't think of what you're going to do next, I'll tell you what your next step is. Go help somebody. Go do a good deed. Everything will change for you. I promise. Make room for what you want. If you feel stuck, depressed, anxious, go find somebody, something to help. I promise you. Like Einstein said, nothing happens till it moves. The next move you should make is to be abundant, to be kind, do a good deed, go help somebody. If you don't know what to do, the only thing you should do is help somebody else. I promise you, everything else will come your way. You'll get things moving again. Money doesn't disappear. It's just slowed down. Let's keep moving. Everything will come back to you. Let's speed it up, get in its way, keep what's yours, give the rest away.
I love it. I can't add anything more to that. I mean, I can only say I've lived that too, brother. I get it. I understand, So speaking of what amazing people you've had in your life, Bob Proctor, I mean, these are just giants, and you're one of those giants, David. So congratulations for continuing to pursue, your mission to empower people to be happy. Speaking of one of your friends, Gary Vee, we have Claude Silver, who's going to be our guest next week. So I'm excited to have her on the show. Yeah. Love her. That was going to be another in-person interview I was going to do in New York City. Obviously, the universe had different plans.
But please send my love to her. She is amazing human being.
Yeah, she's awesome. So thank you for joining us today. Really enjoyed having you here, and wish you the very best. And this will be up after today. People can watch it again, and there's so many great tips and points that they can glean from this conversation. Really appreciate having you here. Carlos, any last minute thoughts or words you want to add before we wrap up?
No, well, not really. The only thing is what I said earlier. It was that I'm going to be spending a lot of time listening back to this interview and actually writing down a few notes for myself, let alone for everything that we share on social media, Twitter and such, but for myself. Especially that part when you said, really struck me, and I got to hand it to you, when you said, when you have nothing, the only thing you can do is just go out and help someone. That's just an amazing thought, because when someone is in dire straits, the first thing is that a lot of people might think is, oh, please help me, right? So the shift in focus and going out and helping someone is going to get you something eventually, because of the, whatever you want to call it, like the loss of the universe or whatever. I am personally very aligned with that mindset. So, and I really admired everything you said, David. I'm going to go back to the beginning of this conversation once we upload it, and I'm going to be taking a lot of notes and, of course, sharing on our social networks, all social media, a lot of quotes that are really, really gems, especially for a lot of people out there that are suffering. They're going to be gems, and they're going to be remembered for a long time. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for allowing me to be in the middle of a miracle. And thank you for being kind to your future selves and doing good deeds and sharing and empowering others. That's my only mission. And you guys are definitely one of my 1,000. So thank you.
Cheers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay. Oh, he left. Right?
Hang on, we're still live.